We're now learning that Alex Pretti had a violent encounter with federal agents a week prior to Border Patrol agents shooting and killing him as he was on the scene of an ICE operation, simply filming it with his cell phone. Now, we all know about this because sources have spoken to CNN to let them know that federal immigration officers have in fact been collecting personal information about protesters in Minneapolis, and they are keeping that information in some sort of database. In other words, the federal government appears to believe that they are at war with the American people who are practicing their First Amendment rights. Now, I'm sure you've got a lot to say about this, Cenk. Give me your 2 cents.
Okay, yeah, number one, there's a little bit of irony here because we're getting a lot of folks, including on the left, to root for local law enforcement. And unfortunately, the federal government is blocking some of the investigations that the state cops want to do. And then I'm going to explain to you guys, after Annie gives you the facts, what is the law and what is normal and what is abnormal. And there is actually plenty of things that they're doing that isn't still in the normal category, but we'll tell you what's in the abnormal category.
All right, so let's actually begin with what we know about Pretti's previous encounter with federal agents, which again took place a week prior to him getting shot and killed by Border Patrol agents. So it is unclear how Pretti first came to the attention of federal authorities, but sources told CNN that about a week before his death, he suffered a broken rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting their attempt to detain other individuals. So he has been obviously involved in these demonstrations in Minneapolis. And when we look into, well, what was that encounter like? Like, what fueled this interaction between Pretti and the federal agents? This is what CNN reports. The earlier incident started when he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle, according to a source who asked not to be named out of fear of retribution. Pretti later told the source that 5 agents tackled him and 1 leaned on his back, an encounter that left him with a broken rib. The agents quickly released him at the scene. Pretti was later given medication consistent with treating a broken rib, according to records reviewed by CNN. Now, CNN, of course, reached out to DHS asking about documentation of this interaction with Pretti. They claim that no such documentation exists. I'm gonna get back to the topic of the federal agents collecting personal information about protesters in just a minute, but a question you might have is, well, is it considered legal for the demonstrators to blow whistles loudly to alert others, potentially those who are undocumented, that ICE is on the scene and that they should, stay away? I did look into this, our team looked into this, and legal experts seem to have a consensus here and agree that it is considered protected under the First Amendment. I'll give you a few examples. This is a quote from attorney Tracy Roy, and this is in the Minnesota Star Tribune. Physically intervening with ICE activity or obstructing justice is illegal, but whistles are considered a protected form of free speech. Here's another statement. If you're in a public space using whistles to signal that law enforcement officers are present and recording law enforcement activities, are expressive activities protected by the First Amendment. That's according to Gregory Magarian, seems like an Armenian lawyer over at the Washington University in St. Louis. And then Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones, who has 30 officers credentialed to perform ICE arrests, said that he has no problem with people using whistles. Quote, they can blow their little whistles and jump up and down, Jones said. I don't care.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to talk more about this a little bit later in the show, but speaking of things that are legal and not legal, there is federal supremacy. So if the federal investigators wanted, they could take over the case. If he's going to be charged at all, the shooters in this Pretti case, they could ask for it to be removed to federal courts, but they cannot block the state from investigating it. And guess what they're doing now? They're blocking the state from investigating it. So that's a huge problem right there. But to me, for the main purpose of this story, there's like 3 versions of Alex Pretti. Right. And I want to go through them real quick, and I'll tell you which one I believe. I suppose you could say there's 4, but one was the original version put out by the federal government, which is he's a terrorist. He's an assassin, and he was going to massacre the Border Patrol agents there. So now literally no one believes that. Not even the most extreme right-wing person believes that. I'm gonna get to them in a second, but that was an obvious over-the-top lie by the Trump administration. And if you're on the right or you voted for Trump, note that they do outrageous lies, and now things that you know to be lies.
And I'm gonna give you some insight based on a scoop in Axios about how that narrative of him being a dangerous terrorist or assassin came about. There was some fighting internally with the Trump administration, but go ahead.
Yeah, number two is the right-wing version of Alex Pretti, which is, oh, you see this, he's a provocateur, maybe Antifa, so not a terrorist, not an assassin, but a guy who's causing trouble. And to them, the broken ribs shows, aha, he deserved it. Why? Because he's constantly agitating, and how dare he protest the US government? Well, first of all, that's literally the most American right there is. It's in the First Amendment, there's no question about it. And when, of course, we've been through this 100 times, when the right protests, they love it and they think it's the most important thing and he can't get shut down. Same thing on the left. So, but they say because his ribs were broken earlier, that makes the shooting him 10 times more justified.
What?
Because they think he's an agitator. So he was at another protest. So since he was at another protest and we kicked his ass earlier and the federal officers broke his ribs, then now a second protest. You're an American citizen and you want to go to 2 protests?
Can't have it.
How dare you? So then they shoot him and kill him. Now the third version of Pretti, I suppose you could have a fourth one that's like relatively neutral. He's a good guy, goes to a protest, or not even good, just goes to a protest. You don't have any view on him, I suppose.
To be fair, we know how dangerous those ICU nurses at the VA happen to be.
Oh yeah, watch out for the nurses. Yeah. So and then, but there's the third version is the one that I believe in, and I suspect a lot of you do, and I know that it's going to drive the right wing crazy, and good. I'm glad it does. I don't care, and we're allowed to have different points of view on it. I think the guy's an absolute American hero. I think that he got killed trying to protect 2 women that had been pushed and pepper sprayed. I think that's the definition of masculinity, is when you go and protect women. And he never drew his weapon, he never did anything that he could have done, but he didn't. And he was there trying to protect American rights. And so that's our view of it and the way we see it. I know that for a lot of other people are like, no, this doesn't have to do with American rights, but we really think that it does. We think that they are out there trying to protect their, the people that they live with in their neighborhood, and they're also trying to protect our First Amendment rights, and in Pretti's case, a Second Amendment right. And the fact that he went to another protest and had his ribs broken, but still came out to protect others. Yeah. I think they should build a statue of him. I really do.
And on top of that, Cenk, he is acutely aware of the physical violence that will be carried out against him. And so to me, that indicates that he is less likely to engage in any type of threat or indication that he might physically harm federal agents, knowing that any move that might be misinterpreted by those agents will be used as justification to carry out violence against him. But I do want to just quickly mention something that Axios broke today in regard to how this narrative of Pretti being some sort of predator, some sort of terrorist, some sort of assassin came about. So Axios writes that immediately after Pretti was fatally shot in Minneapolis about 10:05 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, administration officials in Washington knew that they had a disaster on their hands, okay, but had little information. The officers directly involved in the shooting all shut up and got lawyers real quick, so there wasn't a lot of information, one source briefed said in a statement. Now, the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol agents or officers on the ground furnished a report that White House officials told Axios left officials with the belief that Pretti had brandished a gun. Miller, meaning Stephen Miller, heard gun and knew what the narrative would be. Pretti came to massacre cops, a source briefed on the process of assembling the press statement said. So in other words, at the heart of the lies is Stephen Miller. Then you have the ICE bimbo, Kristi Noem, just regurgitating what their resident Nazi had to say about Alex Pretti. And then the lies, fester until everyone sees the video and they know that they're lies.
So Anna, to me, the most interesting part of that story is that they're not bothering to look at the video. They're not bothering to hear out the evidence or wait for the evidence.
They don't care to.
Like Stephen Miller or really almost anyone at the White House, according to that story, comes out and goes, whoa, guys, we don't even know what happened. Let's figure out what happened first, and then we'll put out a statement based on the facts. No, they go, oh, somebody got shot and they had a gun. Good enough. I don't need to see the video. I don't need to see what happened because I'm going to invent a story anyway. You see what I'm saying? At the White House, they're having a meeting about which story to invent, which narrative to push forward, and it's totally unrelated to what actually happened. In fact, we did a story last week about how Kash Patel is getting a lot of heat again inside the FBI because one of the things that he did after the Charlie Kirk shooting
is cover up for pedophiles.
Well, not only that, but in this particular case, they say he and Dan Bongino were obsessed with what are we going to put on X? Well, how are we going to control the narrative? And the other FBI agents are like, well, don't we have to figure out who did it first? And at that point, no one had even been caught. They're like, shouldn't we be busy worrying about how to catch the guy instead of what narrative to push on X?
Can we please have some adults in the room? Like, we're talking about the FBI director, guys. This is not a small role, okay? And the idea that he's more concerned with how he's gonna come across on social media as opposed to how effective he is on the job is mind-numbingly infuriating, okay? It's just so frustrating. Now, I wanna go back to the topic of protesters being included in some sort of database that federal agents are tracking them in. Because DHS seems to kind of deny that that's what's going on here. They're just saying, no, we've formalized the process. Like we have a specific form now where we will jot down the information of someone who is an agitator. But clearly, based on what we've heard actual ICE agents and Border Patrol agents say to demonstrators who are simply recording their phones. In fact, there was one incident that went viral just recently. It does appear that they are collecting data on individuals who aren't causing any problems at all, including taking photos of their license plates. And on top of that, you have Tom Homan, who is on the record calling for this type of documentation. He was quoted as saying this: "One thing I'm pushing for right now, we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impeding, and assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are." Now, if we're talking about people who are breaking the law, if we're talking about people who are carrying out acts of violence against federal agents, which is illegal, obviously, I have no problem with these individuals getting arrested and being prosecuted for that. That is the correct thing to do. You don't have to execute them right then and there, right? You're not the judge, juror, or executioner, but you should arrest them and they should face prosecution. What we're talking about here, though, is ordinary people, ordinary Americans feeling the need to be part of these demonstrations. They're not violent, they're not doing anything wrong, they're filming with their phones, they're not impeding anything. And just the nature of them recording sets these federal agents off so much that they either treat them violently or they collect data on them. Again, DHS denies that they have any record of the incident involving Pretti, but a memo sent earlier this month, 2 agents temporarily assigned to the city asked them to capture all images, license plates, identifications, and general information on hotels, agitators, protesters, etc., so we can capture it all in one consolidated form. And that's according to a correspondence that was reviewed by CNN.
Yep. So look, last 2 things from me is one is saying we're allowed to do record law enforcement. There's nothing wrong with that. And the second one I'll farm out to one of our members on tyt.com. Get involved in the show, by the way, guys. We love doing the show with you guys. tyt.com/join. Don Dada Dragon said, if there isn't a noise ordinance, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to blow a whistle. Freedom of expression is a right. Yeah, is there like an asterisk in the Constitution I'm unaware of?
I've seen some on the right argue that the fact that some of these demonstrators are blowing whistles in order to alert individuals that ICE is conducting raids is a form of impeding ICE operations. That is not true. So I looked into that. I made sure that we looked into it as a team, and we found numerous examples of legal experts saying, no, that is protected under the First Amendment. It's the same as, let's say, there are apps available where you can download it on your phone and it'll alert you if there is a speed trap, meaning law enforcement is carrying out operations to catch people who are driving too quickly, too fast.
That's actually built into a lot of the GPSs now.
It is.
So apparently almost all Americans are impeding law enforcement.
Right.
And can we not say, here come the po-po anymore?
I mean, it turns out you can. That is protected under the First Amendment, yeah.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.